Revealed, how a millionaire's heartwarming encounter with a poor girl transformed lives forever. Jonah had always operated in a world of high stakes and lofty dreams. The skyline of Chicago framed his empire, a self-made millionaire, a beacon of polished success. But as he sped through the streets in his sleek, black car, the hum of ambition was suddenly shattered. The engine sputtered and conked out, leaving him stranded in a neighborhood that felt worlds apart from his crystal tower, a place with crumbling buildings and lives stitched together by the rhythm of survival. Jonah stepped out, the cold air biting at his tailored suit. He glanced around, taking in laundry lines strung between buildings, graffiti splashed across brick walls, a canvas of struggles. It was a stark contrast to the gleaming boardrooms where he sealed million-dollar deals. A heaviness settled in his chest as he shifted uncomfortably. "Need a hand?" A bright voice chimed. Emily, a spirited 17-year-old girl, approached, her eyes sparkling with mischief and hope. She wore an oversized hoodie that swallowed her thin frame but couldn't hide the warmth radiating from her heart. Jonah was hesitant, but she'd already mobilized, checking under the hood with expertise that took him by surprise. "What's wrong with it?" she asked, teasing him with a smile. "Honestly? I have no idea," he admitted, rubbing the back of his neck, feeling the tension disperse in her lightheartedness. Their laughter brought a warmth that was reminding him of simpler days, of who he was before ambition consumed him. As they chatted, Emily shared her dreams of college, her voice ignited by possibility. She painted images of classrooms, friends, and the freedom to explore a world she only knew from books. Jonah felt awe bubbling inside him. This girl had dreams, big ones, despite the weight of her reality. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." As their friendship blossomed, Jonah found himself caught between worlds. His elite social circle invited him to extravagant parties, where voices dropped conspiratorially around expensive cocktails. Speeches draped in disdain, casually tossing around phrases like "those kinds of people." The joy he felt from Emily's company clashed painfully with judgmental whispers in rooms that thrived on exclusivity. Determined, Jonah hatched a plan, one to secure scholarships for kids in Emily's neighborhood. When he unveiled the idea at a meeting, a chill met his enthusiasm. Friends exchanged looks of disbelief, questioning why he would reach out to uplift the unworthy. His chest tightened with frustration, their dismissiveness echoed in his mind. The battle inside him raged on. Amid the turmoil, a text from Emily lit up his phone, a simple question wrapped in sincerity: "What if we fail?" Jonah's heart raced. He was at a crossroads, decidedly not just about a scholarship anymore. This was about fairness, dignity, and a chance to connect with a world he had so carefully shut out. As he calculated his next move, everything swirled around him. Would he cling to the lifeline of affluence, or take a leap into a life destined for change? Jonah stared at the screen, Emily's question echoing in his mind. What if we fail? It felt heavier than a weighty stone. The city outside flickered with life, but he was frozen, wrestling with the fear that gripped his heart. Failure loomed like a shadow over this growing connection, one that had opened his eyes to a world he'd barely considered. He took a deep breath and scrolled through messages from his friends, their smug warnings casting dark clouds over his enthusiasm. "Investing in that community is a pipe dream," one had snidely remarked. "How long until the taxpayer money just disappears?" It was as if their privilege, their ivory tower, turned them blind to the deserving hearts waiting outside its walls. But Emily was the antidote to that poison. She wasn't just a statistic, she was determination wrapped in hope, a smile fueled by grit. As he paced his apartment that evening, he couldn't shake the vision of her bright eyes, filled with dreams untamed by her circumstances. They were infectious, igniting something deep within him. He picked up his phone and texted, "What if we fly instead?" The thrill rushed through him as he hit send, his gut saying to embrace the risk, to stand beside Emily and others like her. The next morning, Jonah arranged to meet Emily again. He arrived in a slightly rumpled suit, feeling out of place in her world but ready to listen, ready to make a plan. As they sat on the steps of her building, sunlight pouring down like gold over them, he laid out his thoughts. "How about we start small? A workshop for kids to help them apply for scholarships and financial aid?" Emily's eyes lit up, a spark that sent warmth flooding through his chest. "You'd help us?" she asked, disbelief cracking her voice. He nodded, a smile breaking on his face as if for the first time, he could see a way forward. "Of course. You're not alone in this, Em. You're a part of something bigger. You can lead it." "Yes, lead it." The thought was electric. He could already picture the community coming to life, working together to build futures rather than just surviving from day to day. The days that followed were a whirlwind of brainstorming, local connections, and passionate meetings. It wasn't easy, but Jonah found purpose in the struggle. He watched Emily transform, too. She became a beacon of hope, inspiring others in the community to believe in what was possible. But not everyone was happy. The whispers returned from his social circle, sharper this time. "He's wasting his time," they murmured. "Look at him trying to save the world." Jonah met each comment with unwavering resolve. He began to realize that there were two sides of sacrifice at play: the comfort of status and the risk of genuine connection. What weighed heavier? Their disdain or the fire ignited in him by a girl with dreams? Then came the day of the first workshop. Jonah's heart raced, each beat pounding in sync with his hopes and fears. He stood at the front of a humble community center, watching as kids filled the room, eyes reflecting curiosity and doubt. Emily stood beside him, her presence tangible like a warm embrace. The moment felt monumental, a significant push against the tide of everything they were fighting. Yet, just as he began to speak, the door swung open. Shadows moved in, darkening the room, and Jonah felt the air shift. He recognized the faces familiar, disapproving. This wasn't over. Jonah's voice faltered momentarily, his heart pounding in his chest. How far would he go to protect this burgeoning dream? Would they fight to keep their voices alive, or would fear push him back to his old world? Caught between choices and consequences, Jonah knew this was just the beginning. Would they push back against the shadows that threatened to extinguish their light, or would they retreat? The stakes had never been higher. Jonah's heart raced as the doorway filled with familiar faces. His friends, ghosts from his past, had not come here to show support. Their expressions were a mix of contempt and disbelief, the echo of their earlier comments ringing louder than the kids' chatter around him. "He's making a fool of himself," one whispered to another, their condescension wrapping around him like a cold blanket. Emily must have felt the change in energy too. Her eyes darted to Jonah, searching for reassurance as he stood there, visibly shaken. Jonah took a deep breath, steadying himself, forcing back the doubt that threatened to bubble over. He could feel the scrutiny weighing heavy in the air, knotting in the pit of his stomach. But he couldn't let fear dictate the moment. "I'm glad you all could make it," he said, pushing the tremor from his voice. He turned to the children who filled the room, their faces a kaleidoscope of anticipation and uncertainty. "We're here to talk about dreams," he continued, trying to radiate confidence. "Dreams that realize themselves in surprising ways. And every dream needs courage to take flight." Jonah cast a glance at the group standing at the door, his heart thumping while he sensed their disapproval. They shifted, whispering among themselves. One of them, Greg, Jonah's former college roommate, stepped forward, arms crossed. "What's this nonsense? You think hosting a kid's workshop is gonna change anything? You're just wasting your time." Jonah cut him off, anger igniting within him. "No, Greg. Your problem is you don't see the possibilities. You stand there, judging what you don't understand. These kids deserve a shot at something better." The room went quiet. Every eye turned to them, the tension palpable. Emily stepped forward beside him, her voice calm yet fierce. "This isn't about Jonah. This is about hope. About giving every child here the tools they need to chase their dreams, just like you had the chance to do. We refuse to let your negativity dim our light." Jonah's heart swelled with pride at Emily's defiance. He had watched her grow into a leader, stronger than he ever imagined. Facing the crowd, he felt a shift within himself too. This was not just a workshop, it was a stand against the very limitations that had been placed on their lives. Greg opened his mouth to retort, but faltered, unsure. Jonah felt the other friends around him beginning to shift uncomfortably. He pressed on. "You can choose to believe that helping people is a waste of time, or you can decide to help create change. What's it gonna be, Greg?" Greg's eyes narrowed as he grappled with the reality of the moment. Jonah held his gaze, challenging him to reconsider the potential of empathy over apathy. The clock ticked as the silence stretched, thick with tension. Jonah could feel everyone's eyes on him, expectant. Would they rally for these kids, or would they retreat into their comfortable lives? Everyone in the room was waiting for a decision, and he understood now, the choice was theirs to make. Then, a small hand shot up from the back of the room. A shy girl, no more than 8, raised her voice. "Can we really learn how to get scholarships? I want to be a doctor." Her innocent determination cut through the drama like a knife. Emily smiled, the tension fading around her. "Absolutely. That's what we're here for. Together, we'll make sure everyone gets the help they need." Jonah felt the crowd shift beneath his feet, the weight of fear slowly replaced by a different kind of energy. Conversations ignited around the room, as children chattered about their dreams, and the shadows that once loomed dark above the workshop began to wane. But even as laughter replaced silence, Jonah saw Greg's eyes. There was still a battle to be fought. Even with the warmth of a new beginning, he knew there were deeper issues lurking just out of view. Could they really make this work? Would the community embrace their mission, or would the shadows continue to loom, waiting for the right moment to strike again? Jonah felt an unsettling mix of hope and uncertainty. As he looked at Emily, the flicker of fear in her eyes reminded him of the many challenges ahead. Together, they had taken this first leap, but now they needed to build on this momentum. Would the world outside draw them back into despair, or could they inspire others to break those chains of doubt? The road ahead was fraught with challenges, but Jonah felt a surge of determination. The fight was far from over, and a new chapter was just beginning. Jonah could feel the buzz of energy envelop the room like a warm embrace. He watched as the children's faces gleamed with excitement, their conversations weaving through his thoughts. Hope began to blossom, flickering like a candle against the gusts of doubt that threatened to extinguish it. Yet, even amongst their joyful chatter, Jonah couldn't shake the feeling that Greg and the others were still simmering just beneath the surface. With a sharp breath, Jonah clapped his hands, drawing the children's attention back. "All right, everyone. Let's start by writing down our dreams. I want to hear all about what you want to be when you grow up." The children bounced with enthusiasm, crayons and markers whipped out, ready to create their visions on paper. Jonah felt a smile creeping onto his face. This was what it was all about, the spark in their eyes when they thought of possibilities. As he walked around, peering into their drawings, his heart swelled with pride. A boy drew himself in a fireman's uniform, while a girl sketched a big, glittering castle, with her as the princess. But then, as he rounded the corner near the refreshments table, he saw Greg still hanging back, arms crossed, casting sidelong glances at the children. "Hey, Greg," Jonah called out, stepping closer. "Why don't you join us? I think you'd be surprised by how inspiring these kids can be." Greg remained stiff, the lines in his forehead deepening. "You really think this can change anything, Jonah?" These kids will forget about all this in a week, he replied, bitterness tinging his voice. Jonah's resolve steeled. You can't measure the impact of a single moment, Greg. Maybe today is just a stepping stone for them. Every big dream starts with the smallest glimmer of hope. The sincerity in Jonah's voice startled even him. He had not realized how deeply the words resonated within him. Greg narrowed his eyes at the kids, their laughter ringing out like chimes, before he shrugged. Whatever. I'll keep watching, but don't expect me to believe this, he snapped back, still unwilling to let go of his cynicism. As Jonah returned to the children, he spotted Emily smiling at the sketches lining the table. He felt comfort in her presence, the way her enthusiasm lit up the room. Look at this one, she said, pointing to the boy's drawing. What an adventurous spirit. Jonah nodded, his heart warming even further. The vibe in the room was shifting, excitement replaced tension, as more kids began to approach with their drawings, eyes shining as they shared their dreams aloud. Jonah felt the weight on his shoulders lighten, but still, he glanced over at Greg, whose arms were now crossed tightly as he paced back and forth. Hey, you guys! Jonah shouted over to the crowd. How about we pick one dream to work on right now, as a team? The kids cheered in unison, asking for various ideas. Jonah was amazed to see their spontaneous collaboration: a medic, a teacher, a scientist, each child vying to support one another's dreams. Just as Jonah thought of how this collective energy could radiate hope, he caught Greg staring, his face torn between admiration and disbelief. Maybe you're onto something, Greg muttered under his breath, but Jonah heard him. The workshop continued to thrive, and Jonah felt the stirrings of change. As each child presented their ideas, Jonah saw something else, a flicker of recognition in Greg's eyes. Their old friendship felt like a tether, and for the first time, Jonah sensed a possibility of reconciliation. But where would that lead them? With shadows of doubt still trailing behind them, Jonah wondered if maybe this was just the beginning. If the desire to support these children had begun to chip away at Greg's walls, could it change him or maybe even reforge their broken bond? As the workshop extended through laughter and creativity, Jonah knew they weren't out of the woods yet. The event was a success, and the community was starting to wake up, but dangers still loomed in hidden corners. Would Greg find the courage to look past his disdain? And could Jonah weather the storm of potential disagreement that lay ahead? As laughter filled the room, Jonah smiled but also felt a quiver of anticipation. He turned to Emily, their eyes locking in shared determination. They had started something beautiful, but would the budding friendships last, or would the old insecurities push them apart again? The next step would mean confronting those ghosts they so deeply feared. As the laughter of children filled the air, Jonah felt a surge of determination. He moved through the crowd, soaking in the moments, kids beaming with pride as they showcased their drawings, their wild imaginations taking flight with every stroke of color. It was a beautiful sight, a reminder of the endless possibilities that life could offer when nurtured with care. Emily sidled up next to him, her eyes sparkling. This is amazing, Jonah. Look at how they're coming together. Jonah glanced over to see two girls excitedly discussing plans for a superhero clinic. Their voices rose above the rest, presenting a united front, full of determination and joy. For the first time all day, Jonah felt the heaviness of his own doubt lift, replaced by a growing sense of hope. Yet, a glance towards the corner reminded him of the weight that still lingered in the room. Greg remained detached, arms still tightly crossed. Jonah's heart dropped a little. It was like watching a ghost stuck in the shadows, unable to step into the light. Hey, Jonah, what's next? Emily asked, her voice shaking him from his thoughts. Jonah turned back to the crowd. How about we act out our dreams? Let's pretend we're each in our dream job. The kids erupted in cheers, and excitement crackled through the air like electricity. Before he began, Jonah caught Greg's gaze. The glimmer of interest was barely visible, but it was there, a flicker that suggested hopeful curiosity. Jonah took a deep breath. He needed to draw Greg in, to remind him of the joys they once shared. "Greg," Jonah called. "Why don't you join us? We could use the perspective of an adult who has had to make tough choices." Greg raised an eyebrow, but Jonah saw the edges of his mouth twitch. For a heartbeat, there was hope that bubbled beneath the surface. With Greg's resistance still looming, Jonah led the children into a story. They acted out various roles with laughter, courage, and some epic superhero power poses that had even Greg cracking a smile. Little by little, Jonah felt the energy shift. The more the kids engaged, the brighter the room became, and even Greg's brows started to relax as he watched them embrace the moment. Laughter rippled through the crowd, a sound that felt like music, uplifting and freeing. When one girl spun around, arms outstretched, exclaiming, "I'm a doctor. I help people feel better." Jonah's heart soared. That's right. And what do you think would happen if everyone did their part? Jonah asked, encouraging the group to think beyond their roles. A boy shouted, "We save the world." "Exactly." Jonah grinned. The kids cheered once more, their voices melding into a promise of tomorrow, a reminder that dreams could shape their realities. Inevitably, Jonah's gaze drifted once more to Greg. This time, he noticed a softening in Greg's posture, arms gradually uncrossing. "Hey, man," Jonah called, "want to share what your dream job is?" The room fell silent. Greg hesitated. For a moment, Jonah could see a battle brewing inside him. Would he choose to speak up or remain silent? "Fine," Greg finally sighed, a little begrudgingly, "I always wanted to be a teacher." A ripple of surprise fluttered through the kids. Jonah's heart raced. His guess had been right. What kind of teacher? He probed gently. "A science teacher." But Greg faltered, catching Jonah's eye. "Kids would just forget what I teach, just like I forgot my own dreams." The room held its breath, tension thick in the air. Jonah's pulse quickened. This was a vulnerable moment that could either break Greg's wall entirely or force him back into his shell. Jonah stepped forward, voice steady. "Maybe today can remind you that dreams matter, Greg. They're worth fighting for." And just like that, an opening had been cracked. The warmth of shared respect and understanding hung palpably. Perhaps today could mend the ties they had nearly lost. In an incredible moment, Jonah saw Greg reconsider everything: the past, the present, and what their futures could still hold together. Would this day be enough to break through Greg's cynicism? Would they leave the shadows behind and step into the light? As the kids erupted into cheers once more, Jonah couldn't help but feel a rush of hope. The next step, he realized, would require boldness, an acknowledgement of shared hurt. With a smile and an uncertain future ahead, Jonah felt the weight of the world shift yet again. Could they rise from the ashes of their past and build something stronger, united once more? The enthusiasm in the room was palpable, a warm blanket wrapping around Jonah as he cheered along with the kids. But beneath that warmth, a pressing anxiety nagged at him. This moment needed to lead to something more, something lasting. Greg lingered at the edge of the circle, still a few steps away from the joy that seemed to overflow in every corner. "Greg!" Jonah called again, and this time his voice was a blend of hope and urgency. "Join us. We could really use your insight, your voice, your passion." Jonah focused on the laughter erupting around him, trying to embody the spirit of encouragement. He could see the change in Greg, the subtle twitch of his mouth, the way his arms unfolded slightly as if inviting possibilities. Maybe, just maybe, he was starting to see something beyond his fears. In that moment, Jonah decided to turn the energy up a notch. "All right, everyone. Let us create our own story together. Let us make a world where our dreams come true. Who wants to be the first to tell us what their dream job is?" Hands shot up, and voices spilled out like a colorful tapestry. "I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a chef. A firefighter." Jonah's heart sang as he fed off their enthusiasm. Each declaration ignited something deeper in the room. As the kids began to act out their dreams, jumping about and pretending to fly as astronauts, cooking in make-believe kitchens, and saving imaginary cats from trees, Jonah felt the thrill of possibilities dancing in the air. Laughter replaced the earlier tension. But where was Greg in this lively tapestry? Jonah turned to him, sensing that now was the moment. The kids were too enamored with their own dreams to notice that this wasn't just a game for Greg, it was a journey of rediscovery. "Greg, what about you?" Jonah asked again. "Why not show us how a science teacher would inspire a class? What would it look like?" Greg's brow furrowed, a flash of resistance flaring up. But Jonah could see that familiar flicker of interest in his eyes, a whisper of a dream he had once cherished. "Do you really want me to?" Greg asked, almost shyly. "Yes." Jonah encouraged, forcing out a grin. "You might inspire them." With a hesitant sigh, Greg stepped forward. He placed his hands on his hips and adopted a dramatic teaching stance. "All right, everyone. Did you know that stars are massive balls of gas burning billions of miles away? They're like huge LED lights in the universe." The kids gasped, fascinated. Laughter bubbled as Greg animated his story, using his hands to demonstrate the defined shapes of rockets and planets. Jonah watched, his heart swelling as he saw Greg slowly letting go of his fears, becoming more engaged. "Imagine if we could build a rocket," he exclaimed, eyes sparkling in a way Jonah had forgotten existed. "We would need to calculate the force of gravity, understand thrust, it's all science." The room erupted into delighted chaos, kids throwing questions around like fireworks. Jonah felt magic brewing. In that instant, Greg transformed from a shadow into a beacon of inspiration. The cracks in his facade started to widen, revealing glimpses of the man Jonah once knew. "See? You're a natural," Jonah said, wanting to reach out and shake the old Greg awake. Maybe this was more than just a game. Maybe it was the spark Greg needed to find his way back to what he once loved. The air was thick with possibility, and Jonah recognized something fragile: a connection. How do we keep this going? Jonah mused quietly, realizing he had to strike while the iron was hot. How do we take today and build something real from it? As the laughter rolled on, he turned to Emily, who was grinning ear to ear. We could create a group. A community where we bring our dreams to life. But Greg, standing a little off the side, suddenly turned serious. And what if they don't come true? The question hung in the air, laden with the weight of all the dreams left unfulfilled. Jonah felt a chill creep back in, mingling with the hope he'd stirred just moments before. Would they really have the courage to face this moment, the fear of failure? Maybe we start with one step at a time, Jonah said, biting his lip. Maybe we find a way to support each other. The laughter faded for a moment, replaced by silence. Jonah glanced at Greg, whose expression wavered between vulnerability and skepticism. What would it take to transform this shared moment into something lasting? But just as the tension thickened again, a shout broke through. Who wants to build a spaceship? Jonah's heart soared. There was hope yet. But deep down, as the excitement surged back, an unresolved question knotted in Jonah's stomach. Could all of this really last beyond today? Or would they lose sight of their dreams like Greg had before? The answers were waiting out there, shrouded in uncertainty. What lay ahead for Jonah, Greg, and the children was both a challenge and an opportunity. And as the laughter resumed, he couldn't shake the feeling that the real journey was only just beginning. The atmosphere in the room shifted, a little more electric with every shout and cheer. Jonah looked around, soaking in the contagious joy, but his mind kept wandering back to Greg. He felt a deep need to help him keep this momentum going. The kids buzzed with excitement, but Jonah knew they needed a plan, something beyond just this day. All right, dreamers. Jonah called, raising his voice over the excitement. How about we structure this adventure? Let us break into groups, and each team can pick a dream to work on. Together, we can create something incredible. The kids erupted in chatter, buzzing with ideas. Jonah watched as Emily rallied a few, her enthusiasm infectious. Greg stood back, watching quietly, his hands shoved deep in his pockets. "Greg, let us get you involved," Jonah said, stepping closer to him. "You could lead a group on space exploration. Who knows? Maybe even inspire some astronauts in the making." Greg hesitated, eyebrows furrowed. "What if I can't? What if they don't listen?" The doubt crept back in, subtly wrapping around his voice. Jonah felt a pang in his chest. He wasn't trying to push Greg, just trying to pull him into the light. "You just did it," Jonah pointed out, his heart pounding with urgency. "You brought their dreams to life. Just imagine the impact you could have if you keep it going. You have so much to offer." Greg's gaze drifted to the kids, their eyes wide with hope and wonder. For a moment, Jonah could see the internal battle. Greg wanted to step in, but the fear of failure held him back. "Let us try it together," Jonah suggested, lowering his tone. "I can help. You won't be alone." After what felt like an eternity, Greg took a deep breath. His shoulders relaxed just a fraction. "All right, let us see what we can do." As they headed to the makeshift groups forming around the room, Jonah's heart quickened. He couldn't help but feel that a shift was happening. This wasn't just improvisation, this was a chance for Greg to reconnect with who he used to be. Minutes passed like seconds. Laughter turned to concentration as the kids huddled together, bouncing ideas off one another. Greg found his group, and Jonah watched as he animatedly explained concepts, his passion growing with each word. The kids were hanging on to his every syllable, wide-eyed and hungry for knowledge. But Jonah's mind was a whirlpool of thoughts. Could this unity lead to something sustainable? What if they created a weekly program? A space for kids to explore, learn, and grow not just their dreams, but also support each other's growth. Suddenly, the shrill ring of a bell cut through the air, signaling the end of their session. Jonah felt panic rise in his chest, a sensation he hadn't expected. "Wait. Can we meet again next week?" he blurted out, desperation creeping into his voice. The kids turned to him, faces filled with hope and eagerness. "Yes. Let us do it," they shouted. Greg's eyes locked with Jonah's. There was a flicker of realization, and it felt like they were both standing at the precipice of something bigger. Jonah felt his heart race. This was the moment. Would they take the plunge? The uncertainty loomed like a cloud, but beneath it was hope. They had a chance to build something meaningful, to redefine what dreams could become. As the kids buzzed with excitement, Jonah thought of the hurdles they still faced. Would Greg commit? Would the kids really return? Just then, a little girl tugged at his sleeve, eyes bright. "Can we really make a rocket next time?" Jonah smiled back, feeling a rush of warmth. "Absolutely. A real rocket." But inside, the question lingered. Would this enthusiasm fade, like so many dreams forgotten in the rush of life? What would it take to keep the wings of their dreams aloft? As laughter filled the room again, Jonah's gaze returned to Greg. The man seemed transformed, yet a part of him still seemed trapped between fear and possibility. The journey had only begun, and as Jonah stood surrounded by bright-eyed dreamers, he felt the weight of it all pressed down. The stakes were higher now. What would it take to hold this momentum? And as the kids prepared to leave, Jonah's heart resonated with anticipation. They were on the brink of something remarkable if only they could keep that spark alive. The question remained, could they truly take flight? Jonah watched as the children filed out of the room, a whirlwind of laughter and chatter leaving behind an echo of potential. His eyes instinctively searched for Greg, who stood off to the side, arms crossed, a hesitant smile playing on his lips. There was a fragility to him, as if he were balancing on the edge of a cliff, afraid to commit to the leap ahead. "Hey, you were incredible in there," Jonah said, stepping closer. "Did you see how engaged they were?" His voice carried a mix of excitement and disbelief. Greg shrugged, still absorbing the moment. I guess, but what if I can't keep that up? What if next time, I let them down? Feeling the gravity of Greg's doubts, Jonah placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. You won't let them down. You've already started something special today. Think about it, they look up to you. He glanced at the open door where the kids had just exited, their joy palpable. You have the chance to create something they can rely on. You could shape their dreams. Maybe Greg's voice trailed off, uncertainty shrouding his thoughts. Maybe isn't good enough, Greg? Jonah insisted, his own frustration rising. This is something they all need. You need to believe it too. Greg's jaw tightened, but then he took a deep breath, a flicker of determination igniting in his eyes. What if I make a plan? Something long-term to keep them interested. Jonah felt a surge of hope. Absolutely. Together, we can brainstorm. We can list out projects, themes. We can even test out new ideas. As they ventured to the whiteboard, Greg's gaze reflected a mix of excitement and trepidation. Jonah grabbed a few markers, scribbling down their collective thoughts. Rockets, dinosaurs, space explorations, all these whimsical, bright ideas sprang to life on the board, infused with their bond and teamwork. Each scribble felt like a spark, fueling their momentum. Greg began to share ideas more freely, his voice gathering confidence as he suggested projects. Jonah marveled at how swiftly Greg transformed into a source of inspiration. It was like watching a flower start to bloom after a long winter. But deep within, Jonah couldn't shake a sense of urgency. While this was a breakthrough, what if it all faded away with the next school week? What would happen if Greg didn't sustain this momentum? Suddenly, the reality of the situation hit him like a wave. We need to tell the kids why this matters, Jonah said, his heart racing. We need to make it clear how this can be a part of their lives. Greg paused, considering the weight of Jonah's words. Like organizing an event or showcase. To show their parents? Yes. Exactly. Jonah exclaimed, a rush of excitement flooding through him. We could reach the community. Show them how passionate these kids are. Maybe get parents involved to support them. The thought hung between them like a promise, growing more vibrant with each passing second. Greg's face brightened, and Jonah felt a renewed heart swell with hope. But a question gnawed at Jonah. Would the parents understand? Would they see the value? As much as he believed in the kids, uncertainty hung in the air. What do you think it would take? Jonah asked. Greg's brow furrowed in thought. Maybe we need to find a story to connect them to everything, something real. As the ideas flowed, Jonah realized they were walking a perilous line between hope and fear. Would their plans take flight, or would they crash and burn? The room felt charged with possibilities. They could be on the brink of a powerful connection, one that could transcend the usual boundaries, and create an impact that rippled through their community. Jonah locked eyes with Greg, a silent understanding passing between them. They knew what lay ahead wouldn't be easy, but they were determined. The journey was just beginning, and within it lay the undeniable power of dreams brought to life. What they didn't know was how the challenges they faced would test them, pushing each of them to confront their own fears and strengths. Would they rise to the occasion, or find themselves overwhelmed? The adventure awaited, and as they prepared to walk into that uncertain future, the true battle for their dreams was just beginning. Jonah and Greg stood in the empty room, the excitement floating around them like a perfume. Greg scribbled down a few more project ideas, his marker gliding smoothly on the whiteboard as if channeling a burst of energy from the children's laughter just moments ago. Jonah couldn't help but smile at the transformation, but within him, the storm of doubt still loomed. What's next? Greg asked, a newfound gleam in his eyes. How do we show them what this can be? Jonah leaned against the whiteboard, banking on the fervor of their ideas. Maybe we can start with something simple. A fun day. A showcase. Right, A day where they can display what they've learned, Greg replied, enthusiasm spilling from his voice. We can set up posters, have them demonstrate projects, a space fair or a science day. Yes. And we can invite the parents, maybe even local businesses, Jonah suggested. The thrill of possibility surged again. If we could get the community involved, it would make the kids feel important even more than just learners. A flicker of worry crossed Greg's face. Do you think they'll care? I mean, what if the parents are too busy to come? Jonah pondered for a second. What if we share stories? Real stories from the kids about what they dream of or what these projects mean to them. That might catch their hearts. What if we tape their interviews? Greg's enthusiasm bubbled over. We can show their personalities, their passion. Maybe even use social media. Great idea. Jonah beamed, basking in the wave of inspiration washing over them. A showcase filled with life, laughter, and heartfelt stories. It felt like discovering a hidden treasure. But as he envisioned the day, another worry crept in. What if no one shows up? What if we put all this effort in, and it flops? The fear manifested like a shadow between them. Greg's brow knitted tightly, the doubts creeping back. Then it would just be another disappointment, another reminder. Hey. Jonah stepped closer. It might happen. But if we give it our all, and even one parent shows up, even one kid gets inspired, then it'll be worth it, right? The weight of Jonah's words settled in the air. Greg inhaled deeply, nodding slowly as if the conviction wrapped around him like a comforting blanket. You're right. They need to hear this, we need to show them they matter. We have to make an impact. Excitement surged like wildfire. They brainstormed details about logistics on their makeshift plan. Jonah outlined tasks, and Greg stepped into a leadership role, managing timelines and chores. They were no longer just two friends, they were partners in a mission, fueled by the passion of those kids. Yet, as they worked, Jonah couldn't shake an unsettling feeling, one that turned his stomach like a tightening coil. He needed to be ready for anything. What if the parents reacted negatively? What if some kids faltered or felt discouraged instead of inspired? The thought hammered away at his heart, each beat echoing the uncertainty. We can't let fear win, he whispered to himself, determined. As they regrouped after what felt like hours, Jonah paused, the weight of their ambition heavy in the air. Let us commit to it, Greg. No backing down. We'll pour our hearts into this. We owe them that. Greg's eyes sparkled with resolve. And who knows? Maybe this will change how they see themselves. Or how the parents see us. Exactly. Jonah exclaimed, a wave of excitement renewing his spirit. We carve our path, no matter the outcome. Our dreams are worth fighting for. But as they gathered their notes and prepared to leave the room, a chilling thought sliced through the haze of hope. Whatever this path led them to, would they be strong enough to face the fallout, to confront the potential disappointment of unmet expectations? Just as they opened the door to venture into the world beyond, Jonah's heart raced with the electric possibility that awaited them. It was no longer just a project in a classroom. This was a moment that could reshape everything, for them and the kids. Would they soar or stumble? Only time would tell, and soon, they would learn what it truly meant to dream. But beneath it all, a question lingered, heavy and pivotal: what would happen when the spotlight shone on them? Would they rise to meet it or falter in its glare? The day of the showcase arrived, a buzzing anticipation humming through the air like a lively orchestra tuning before a performance. Jonah stood at the entrance of the community center, soaking in the colorful banners and artwork displayed triumphantly by the kids. Each creation told a story of dreams transformed into tangible hopes. As Jonah watched the families begin to trickle in, he felt a mix of exhilaration and anxiety. Would they embrace the spirit of this event? Would the parents see what they had nurtured together? Hey, Jonah. Emily found him amid the commotion, her face radiant with excitement. Look at all the posters. Everyone's excited. Yeah, it's incredible. Jonah replied, breathing in her enthusiasm. But still, the flicker of doubt nagged at him. The room filled with echoing laughter, children darting around excitedly, their parents admiring every step of their journey. Jonah's heart warmed at the sight. Greg arrived, glancing around with a newfound air of confidence, his smile broader than Jonah had ever seen. Everything looks fantastic, Greg said, clapping Jonah on the back. They're ready to shine. Jonah returned the smile, but inside he grappled with the swirling apprehension. I just hope the parents see their potential see them. The moment they had prepared for finally arrived. Jonah stepped behind the makeshift podium, a wave of emotions crashing over him. He cleared his throat, feeling the eyes of the community bore into him. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here to celebrate the power of dreams today, he began, his voice steadying with each word. Children beamed with pride, clutching their projects like trophies of triumph. Jonah continued, sharing the story of how a spark ignited by Emily's dreams transformed a community, dismantling misunderstandings built from years of division. As he spoke, he caught sight of Greg, who stood among the kids, animatedly discussing science projects and listening to their hopes for the future. Jonah felt a palpable shift, a connection forming between the kids and the adults. Next, it was Emily's turn. We've worked hard for this, and we want every child here to know that their dreams are valid. Her voice rang clear, vibrant as the sunbeam that sliced through the window. Her passion was infectious. But just as the mood soared, Jonah noticed a shift from the back of the room. A group of parents exchanged skeptical glances, some whispering their doubts. Jonah's heart sank. Could this moment slip from their hands? Today is about envisioning the future, he said, feeling the weight of every word more than ever. These kids are not just dreamers, they are future leaders, inventors, and healers. It's our responsibility to nurture and believe in their potential. He grasped for connection, catching Greg's eye as he encouraged parents to join in and share their stories of aspirations, reminding them of their own childhood dreams and the power of support. And then, as if a veil had been lifted, one parent rose slowly from the back. I want my daughter to be a scientist, but I never thought it possible. Today it feels real, she admitted, her voice vulnerable yet strong. Voices began to swell from the crowd, cautiously sharing their own dreams, echoing life through the walls of the room. The energy in the room shifted like a gentle tide, washing away the remnants of skepticism. Jonah felt hope blossom as smiles widened and laughter resonated like harmony. Jonah turned, scanning the crowd filled with families, feeling gratitude swell. In that moment, all the challenges they faced seemed inconsequential compared to this beautiful connection with the community. He watched as Greg stepped forward. And this is just the beginning, he proclaimed, his voice filled with conviction. Let us keep this going. What if we added monthly workshops, let the kids lead sessions? They can teach us just as much. Raucous applause followed, and Jonah felt a rush of joy. They were making a statement together, transforming doubt into belief. As the kids presented their projects, unveiled dreams, and danced with exuberance on stage, Jonah realized they had already won. This event would ripple across their community, resonating hope and promise. And in that moment, all the fears he had straddling his heart began to dissolve. They were no longer two fragmented paths, they were carved from the same dream, a vision of connection that had the power to uplift. As laughter faded into joyful chatter, Jonah caught Emily's eye. She smiled brightly, radiating with the pride of accomplishment. She had sparked something beautiful, how could he ever doubt their ability to spread light? Jonah's heart was full, and as the showcase concluded, the crowd erupted into cheers. He recalled every twist and turn leading to this moment, every sleepless night, frustration, and doubt felt like a stepping stone in a grander voyage. Jonah. Greg's voice broke through the celebratory noise. We did it. We really did it. Yes, we did. Jonah exclaimed, feeling tears prickle at the corners of his eyes. In that instant, as parents hugged their kids and excitement buzzed in the air, Jonah absorbed the truth: lives were forever changed. But that spark didn't just illuminate the room, it ignited within him a deep realization. They were not merely dreamers, they were dreammakers, bound together by aspiration and belief. He turned to his community of family now, and at that moment, Jonah understood that this was just the beginning of their journey. "Let us keep the momentum," he urged, holding the heartfelt gaze of each child and parent. "This is our community, and we can build brighter futures together." With that, the room erupted once more, laughter and joy intertwining like a melody. They had crafted a new melody of hopes and dreams, one destined to persist far beyond those walls. Together, they were ready to take flight. As applause rang out, Jonah felt electrified. Their dreams were no longer pinned underneath the weight of doubt, they had risen strong and vibrant, nestled in the embrace of possibility. Would this be the stepping stone to continue breaking barriers and amplifying voices? Only time would reveal their next chapter, but one thing was certain: their heartwarming encounter had transformed lives forever. And as Jonah watched the children celebrating, a resolute smile broke across his face. The winds of change blew softly, wrapping them in hope and laughter. They would soar together, hand in hand. Now, it's your turn to take action. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that will inspire and uplift. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and let the world know this story matters. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this inspiring ending, we want to hear your voice. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this transformation. Let us spread the love and hope together. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey.